For 15 years, I slept beside a man who didn't exist. I had 2 children with someone who used a fake name, fake ID, and a fake life. And worst of all, when he died, I spent 6 months crying at the grave of a complete stranger because even his death was a lie. My name is Harriet Ann Williams. I'm 78 years old, living in Springfield, Missouri, and today I'm going to tell you the most unbelievable story you've ever heard. But it happened to me. A story I've kept to myself for many years, one that only my children and grandchildren know. I've decided to share it now because I know many women, especially from my generation, will relate to this pain. Before I begin, please hit the like button below this video. Subscribe to the Grandma's Diary channel to follow more stories like mine. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm sure people from all across America, maybe even other countries, will understand what I went through. It all started in 1965. I was a 19-year-old girl full of dreams and illusions. I'd been working since I was 12 at my father's general store, Mr. William Williams, right on Main Street in downtown Springfield. Back then, Springfield was still a small town. Everyone knew everyone. Daddy's store was the meeting place. We sold everything: rice beans, canned goods, kerosene fabric, thread needles. Customers would come in the morning to buy bread and stay until noon just chatting. I was considered a pretty girl for the time. Not bragging, it's just the truth. I had long black hair down to my waist, naturally straight as silk. Never needed any straightening product. My skin was tanned from the Missouri sun. We didn't have the fuss about sunscreen back then. I had a tiny waist from carrying sacks of groceries and boxes of merchandise. Hard work shaped my body. I wore the swing dresses my mother, Miss Gloria, sewed for me. She was a seamstress making clothes for other people to supplement our income. June of '65 arrived with that pleasant coolness of the Midwest. It wasn't truly cold, just a fresh breeze that made you want to wear a little crocheted shawl. The First Baptist Church 2 blocks from the store was organizing the biggest 4th of July celebration in the region. Pastor Anthony, God rest his soul, was so enthusiastic he wanted to put on the biggest Independence Day festival Springfield had ever seen. My mother was in charge of the apple pie stand. She made 3 enormous batches using those huge pans for making apple butter, pies with fresh milk, cinnamon, nutmeg, and hand-grated apples. The smell filled our entire house. I was supposed to help serve at the stand with my church friends, Teresa, the pharmacist's daughter, and Mary Jane, the warehouse owner's daughter. I got ready with special care that night. I wore my prettiest dress, the one with blue polka dots on a white background that I'd gotten for Christmas. A swing dress with a petticoat underneath to give it shape. A thin belt marking my waist. I brushed my hair until it shone like a mirror. I pinned it to the side with a fake pearl barrette, my greatest treasure. I'd bought it with my own money at Mrs. Carmen's notion store. I wore my white strap sandals, put on light pink lipstick that my mother only let me use on special occasions, and perfume Avon's Castilian cologne that cost a fortune, but lasted all year because we used it drop by drop. We arrived at the celebration at 7 in the evening. The church square was decorated with colored paper streamers. There were stands selling lemonade, roasted corn popcorn, apple butter, peanut brittle, and fudge. The town band played country tunes. The accordion player, Mr. Wen Eight Keys as he was known, led the songs everyone knew by heart. That's when I saw him for the first time. He was leaning against the lamppost at the entrance to the square, smoking a Marlboro, the red pack that only rich people smoked. He wore an impeccable white linen suit without a single wrinkle, a white shirt, a black bow tie, and black and white wingtip shoes that squeaked when he walked because they were so new. His black hair was slicked back with Brill cream parted on the side with the precision of a ruler. He was different from all the men in Springfield. Tall, must have been 5'11" at a time when American men barely reached 5'9". Slim, but not skinny. He had broad shoulders, a thin, perfectly trimmed mustache like movie stars, and fair skin like someone who didn't work outdoors. His hands, oh his hands, were what caught my attention most. White soft, with clean trimmed nails without a single callus. Doctor's hands. Our eyes met from across the square. He held my gaze, didn't look away, threw his cigarette on the ground, stepped on it, calmly adjusted his tie, and came walking toward me. My heart raced so much I thought everyone could hear it. My hands started to sweat. I almost dropped the pie server I was holding. He stopped in front of the stand, tipped an imaginary hat from his head, made an exaggerated bow that made me laugh. "Good evening, miss. Allow me to introduce myself. Adam Crawford, civil engineer, graduated from MIT in Boston. I'm in Springfield on business, and I must confess I didn't expect to find such a beautiful young lady in a small town." His voice was deep measured, pronouncing each word perfectly. He didn't drop his R's or his G's like the men around here. He spoke like an NBC radio announcer, the kind we listen to on Sundays. "Good evening," I replied with a trembling voice. "I'm Harriet, Mr. Williams's daughter from the general store." "Ah, the famous Main Street General Store. I've heard about it. They say it has the best products in town. Now I understand why. The most precious merchandise is right in front of me." I blushed to the roots of my hair. Teresa and Mary Jane giggled. My mother, who was cutting fresh apples nearby, cleared her throat loudly. "Young man, my daughter is working. If you want to talk, buy a slice of pie." He laughed, took out his wallet from his pocket, a genuine leather wallet brown that shined with newness. "Give me 3 slices, please, Miss Gloria," my mother responded dryly. "3 slices for Miss Gloria, then, and permission to invite your daughter to dance after, if you'll authorize it, of course." My mother was a bit uncomfortable. The man was educated, refined, clearly had status. She looked at me, saw my pleading look. "After she finishes helping here, she can dance 1 song, but with respect." I spent the next hour serving pie with trembling hands, my eyes on him the whole time. He stood there eating the pie, slowly watching me. When it was 900, my mother nodded. "You can go, but be back in half an hour." I took off my apron, stored it under the counter, ran my hand through my hair to see if it was in place. He offered his arm. "Shall we? Miss Harriet?" His hand was warm, firm. He led me to the middle of the square where couples were dancing. The band started playing Stars and Stripes Forever. He knew all the steps. He led me with a confidence that made me dizzy. When he had to put his arm around my waist, I felt an electric shock run through my entire body. During the dance, he kept talking. "I came from New York to supervise the construction of a highway that will connect Springfield to Branson. I work for the Federal Highway Administration. I'll be based here for a few months. Then I'll go to another city, another project. It's the life of an engineer." "How interesting," I replied, not knowing exactly what to say. I'd never talked to someone so educated. "And your family, sir? Call me Adam, please." "Sir is my father. God rest his soul. My family is just my mother." "Mrs. Eleanor. She lives in Philadelphia. I'm an only child. I lost my father when I was a boy." The song ended. Another began. It was a waltz now. He pulled me closer, his hand on my back. I smelled his imported cologne lavender with something citrusy. "Miss Harriet, may I make a confession?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. "I came to this celebration by chance. I was bored at the hotel, but I think it was fate. I've never seen a more beautiful woman in my entire life." After that night at the celebration, my life changed completely. Adam showed up at the store every single day, always at the end of the afternoon when business slowed down and the sun began to set, painting the sky pink. He always arrived impeccably dressed each day with a different suit. He had the Oxford gray, the light beige, the navy blue, the coffee brown, always with a tie, always with his hair perfectly combed, always with that side smile that made my heart skip a beat. His purchases were curious. One day he'd buy a can of strawberry preserves. Another day 3 boxes of matches, then a bar of Ivory soap. My father commented to me once, "This fellow buys like a bird little by little. What's going on, Harriet? A bachelor who doesn't know what he needs at home, or is he interested in something other than merchandise?" Daddy was right. Of course Adam didn't need any of those things. I found out later that he was staying at the Central Hotel, the best in town, where all meals were included. The purchases were just an excuse to see me, to talk to me, to win me over slowly. On the 3rd day after the celebration, he arrived with a golden box. Whitman samplers, 15 chocolates. It cost a fortune at that time. "For the sweetest girl in Springfield," he said, placing the box on the counter. "I can't accept it, Adam. It's too expensive. My mother will say it's not appropriate." "Then let's do this," he proposed with that clever way of his. "I'll ask your father for permission to court you officially. Then the gifts will be appropriate. How about I come for Sunday dinner?" And that's how it began. Sunday noon sharp. Adam knocked on our door. He brought a bouquet of roses for my mother, a bottle of bourbon for my father. He wore his impeccable white suit despite Springfield's heat. He sat at our humble table, ate the fried chicken with cornbread that my mother prepared, praised each bite as if it were a king's banquet. After lunch, the men went to the backyard to talk. They stayed there for 2 hours. I was dying of curiosity washing dishes and trying to listen through the kitchen window. When they returned, my father was serious, but Adam was smiling. "Harriet, your father has authorized our courtship with respect with limits, but he authorized it. The courtship lasted only 3 months. September, October, November. 3 months of Sundays at the Paramount Theater, drives in his sky blue Volkswagen Beetle through the surrounding farms, ice cream at the Dairy Queen. Adam treated me like I was made of porcelain. He opened the car door, pulled out the chair for me to sit. Always walked on the street side to protect me. He told stories about the projects he supervised. A bridge in Kansas that would connect 2 towns separated by a raging river. A road in Montana that would cut through virgin forest. Federal government projects to integrate the country. He showed knowledge of geography, engineering, and politics that left me speechless. I, who had only studied until 8th grade, felt small next to all that intelligence. December arrived with an urgency I didn't expect. It was the 23rd, the day before Christmas Eve. The store was chaotic. Everyone buying for Christmas. Adam appeared sweaty, nervous, rare for him, who was always so controlled. "Harriet, I need to talk to you now. It's urgent." We went to the back of the store where sacks of grain were stacked. "Harriet, I received a telegram today. The company wants me to take over the general supervision of a massive project, an interstate highway that will cross 5 states. It's the opportunity of my lifetime, but I need to move, start in January." I felt the ground disappear. He was leaving. 3 months of courtship, and he was leaving. My eyes filled with tears. "I understand. So this is goodbye." "No, my love. Never. That's why I'm here. Marry me, Harriet. Get married now before the new year. Come with me. It will be me, you, and the children God gives us. We'll live across America, seeing places, building our future. Will you marry me now? But Adam, it's too fast. We barely know each other. My mother will say it's crazy. Harriet, when you know, you know. I know you're the woman of my life. I've known since that night at the celebration. Please be my wife." I said yes. Of course I said yes. At 19, in love to my soul, how could I say no? The rush was insane. 23 days to organize a wedding. My mother nearly went crazy. "It's too fast, daughter. This man appeared out of nowhere, and his family, his friends. Mom, he's a fatherless orphan. He only has his mother in Philadelphia. His friends are all in New York and Boston. He's an important engineer. He doesn't have time for these things. My father was more practical. The young man has a federal job, Gloria, a government position, guaranteed future. Our daughter will have a good life. She'll see America. The grandchildren will go to private school. Let the girl be happy." The wedding dress was made by my mother. She stayed up 3 nights sewing white satin we bought at Mr. Isaac's fabric store, French tulle veil that cost an arm and a leg, a wreath of orange blossoms that the neighbor Mrs. Conception made with all her affection. Ironic, isn't it? The neighbor had the same name as his real wife. Fate was already giving signs, but I was too blind to see. On my wedding day, January 15, 1966, I woke up at 5 in the morning. I had barely slept from anxiety. I took a bath with warm water and rose-scented soap. My mother helped pin my hair in a low bun with loose curls in the front. The makeup was simple face powder and pink lipstick. I didn't need anything else. Happiness already made my face radiant. The First Baptist Church was beautiful, white flowers everywhere, gladioli, chrysanthemums, daisies, the aisle covered with a borrowed red carpet, the pews filled on my side with family friends, customers from the store. Everyone wanted to see Mr. Williams's daughter get married. On Adam's side, an embarrassing emptiness, just one person sitting in the first pew, Mrs. Eleanor had arrived the day before, coming from Philadelphia, according to Adam. A tall, thin woman like a pole, always dressed in black, closed up to the neck, even in the heat. Gray hair pulled into a bun so tight it stretched the skin of her face. Small, hard eyes that seemed to judge everything and everyone. When we were introduced the day before the wedding, she looked me up and down as if I were merchandise at auction. "So this is my son's chosen one," she said it with a thin, cutting voice. Adam turned red. "Mother, this is Harriet, my fiancée, soon to be your daughter-in-law." She shrugged. "We'll see if it lasts. My son has always been fickle with women." I swallowed the insult. She was my future mother-in-law. I had to respect her. Little did I know I would endure much more than insults in the coming years. The wedding march began. My father gave me his arm, squeezed my hand. "You look beautiful, daughter. Be happy." We walked slowly down the aisle. I saw everything in slow motion. The smiling faces, eyes moist with emotion, flashes from the few cameras. And there at the front at the altar, Adam waiting for me in that impeccable black suit, the most beautiful smile in the world. Pastor Anthony performed a moving ceremony. He spoke about love, commitment, family. "Adam and Harriet, you are beginning a sacred journey today. I promise to love each other in joy and sorrow, in sickness and in health, in wealth and in poverty." We promised. When it was time for the vows, Adam held my hands and looked into my eyes. "Harriet, I promise to love and protect you every day of my life. You will be my companion, the mother of my children, the owner of my heart." I cried so much that my mascara smudged. "Adam, I promise to be your faithful wife, to take care of our home, our children, to love you until the last day of my life. If I had known I was promising love to a ghost, I would have run out the church door." The reception was in the church hall, 3-tiered cake that my godmother ordered, little treats that the church ladies made, cold Coca-Cola and Budweiser beer. The band played until midnight. I danced with Adam all night. He twirled me, hugged me, whispered in my ear, "You are the most beautiful woman in the world, Mrs. Crawford." Mrs. Crawford. How beautiful that surname sounded. Little did I know it was never truly mine. The honeymoon in Hot Springs, Arkansas was a dream that lasted 3 days. The Arlington Hotel was the most luxurious I had ever seen in my life. Red carpet at the entrance, crystal chandeliers in the lobby, waiters with white gloves. Adam had reserved the bridal suite. When I opened the door, I almost fainted. French champagne in an ice bucket, red roses scattered on the canopy bed, Swiss chocolates on the nightstand. It seemed like something from a movie. On the first night together as husband and wife, Adam was gentle, patient. I was a virgin, inexperienced, dying of embarrassment. He held my face between his hands and said, "Harriet, you are mine now, mine forever. I will take care of you, as if you were made of crystal." That night, I gave myself body and soul to the man I thought would be my companion for the rest of my life. We returned to Springfield on a Tuesday. The house that Adam had rented in the Heights neighborhood left me speechless. A 2-story house with 3 bedrooms, spacious living room kitchen, with both a wood stove and a gas stove backyard, with an apple tree and a cherry tree. He had furnished everything before the wedding. New sofa from Ethan Allen dining table for 6 people, solid wood double bed, 3-door wardrobe. He had even bought a Frigidaire refrigerator, something few people had at the time. But the honeymoon didn't last long. On our 4th day as newlyweds, Adam dropped the first bomb. He was having breakfast. I had made homemade bread, melted cheese, freshly brewed coffee. "Harriet, my love, I need to tell you something. The job I accepted requires sacrifices. I'll have to travel a lot. I'll be 20 days at the site, 10 days at home. It's the price of being a federal engineer. 20 days away, newly married, and I was already going to be alone for 20 days. My eyes immediately filled with tears. "Adam, but we just got married. How am I going to be without you for so long?" He got up, hugged me, kissed my forehead. "That's exactly why I brought my mother from Philadelphia. She'll live with us, keep you company. You won't be alone." The next day, Mrs. Eleanor showed up with 2 enormous suitcases and a sour face. "I've come to take care of the house while my son works." It wasn't a request, it was a statement. She simply installed herself in the back bedroom and started taking over everything. Adam left the following Monday, 6:00 in the morning, fog covering the city. He kissed my forehead, caressed my face. "I'll be back in 20 days. I'll send word. Take care of yourself. Take care of Mom." He got into the blue Volkswagen and disappeared around the corner of the street. As soon as the car disappeared, Mrs. Eleanor changed completely. The mask fell off. "Now let's get one thing clear, girl. This house may be in your name, but my son pays for it. So I make the rules." Coffee on the table at 6 lunch at noon, sharp dinner at 7, clean house, ironed clothes, well-served food, and no gossiping with neighbors. A proper woman stays inside the house. I became a maid in my own home. Mrs. Eleanor would sit in the living room armchair, take up her knitting, and give orders. This coffee is too weak. Make it again. The rice is soggy. Don't you know how to cook? This blouse is poorly ironed. Iron it again. And it wasn't just with me. She was worse with visitors. When my mother came to see me, she wouldn't even greet her. She would just keep knitting, ignoring her until my mother felt uncomfortable and left. 2 weeks after his departure, the first telegram arrived. The telegram messenger knocked on the door, handed me the yellow envelope. Work progressing. All well. Postal money order, $200 sent. Post office, bank, central branch. Miss you, Adam. I ran downtown, cashed the money. It was quite a lot for the time. It was enough to get through the month comfortably, but it didn't compensate for the absence. The nights were the worst. I would lie in that huge bed, hug his pillow, which still smelled of lavender, cry, until I fell asleep. When Adam returned 23 days later, it seemed like a year had passed. Thin, tired, with dark circles under his eyes. The work is hard, Harriet. Lots of sun, lots of responsibility. But I brought presents. A floral cotton dress, small gold earrings, lavender cologne. He hugged me tight, made love to me with an urgency I had never seen. Mrs. Eleanor became another person when he was home. She helped in the kitchen, smiled, even talked to me. Son Harriet is hardworking. She takes good care of the house. Adam would smile proudly. I knew I would find a good wife. March of '66. I discovered I was pregnant. The morning sickness, the delay, the dizziness. I went to Dr. Mendez, who confirmed it. 2 months along, I waited for Adam to return to tell him. I wanted to see his face, but he took his time. This time it was 28 days. When he finally arrived, I was already 3 months, the belly starting to show. We're going to have a baby, Adam. He spun me in the air, kissed my belly, cried with emotion. A baby, my heir. He'll be named William. If it's a boy, it was my grandfather's name. And if it's a girl? He made a face. It's going to be a boy, I'm sure. The pregnancy was lonely. Adam missed all the prenatal appointments. He was always traveling when I felt sick. When I felt the baby move for the first time, when my belly grew so much I couldn't see my feet anymore. Mrs. Eleanor helped in her way, which was by complaining. Pregnant women should eat for 2, but you eat for 3. You're going to be fat for the rest of your life. October of '66, 12th, Columbus Day. The pain started in the middle of the night. At first I thought it was indigestion. Then came a different pain, strong, that tightened and released. I woke up, Mrs. Eleanor. I think the baby is coming. She looked at the clock. 3:00 in the morning. Babies always choose the wrong time. I'll call your father. My father arrived with the station wagon, carried me in his arms to the car, drove to County Hospital. Adam was in Montana on an urgent job. He had left 5 days before promising to return for the birth. An empty promise. The labor lasted 12 hours. Pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. My mother held my hand the whole time. Push, daughter. It's almost over. When William was born at 3:00 in the afternoon, his cry filled the room. Strong, healthy 7th nadas. Black hair, button nose, perfect little hands. Adam arrived 3 days later. He rushed into the maternity room, sweaty, with a bouquet of roses so big it barely fit through the door. Forgive me, Harriet. The train was delayed. The bridge was out. I had to go around. Forgive me. He held William in his arms for the first time, cried like a child. My son, my boy, you will have everything your father didn't have. Education, comfort, opportunity. The routine was established, and it was hard. Adam traveling me, taking care of the baby, practically alone. William had colic, woke up every hour. Mrs. Eleanor complained about the crying. Make that boy be quiet. I need to sleep. I have migraines. 69. I got pregnant again. Adam promised that this time he would be present. I swear, Harriet, I won't miss another birth. Lie like all the others. Nancy was born on May 15, 1970, in the dry spring of Springfield. Adam was in Montana. The telegram took 5 days. Congratulations on the girl. Deposited extra. Back soon, Adam. Mrs. Eleanor looked at Nancy with contempt. A girl. What a waste. My son needed another man to carry on the name. Now he'll have to try again. I held my daughter tightly, afraid of what that witch might be capable of. The 70s brought subtle changes. Adam stayed away longer, 25 days, sometimes 30. The excuses were always the same. Delayed work rain that prevented work problem with materials. The money kept coming, even increased, but he was increasingly distant. I started to notice strange things. Adam never received mail. Never. No letter from the company, no telegram, nothing. When I asked, he said, "Everything goes to the office in New York. Here is our home. I don't want to mix them." Another thing, he never answered the phone. When it rang and it was for him, he always said he would call back from the payphone. I need privacy for work matters. And the clothes they came back from the trip ironed, some still with creases from the iron. What construction site in the middle of nowhere has a laundry service? 75 was the year of the first concrete sign. I found an envelope behind the dresser. Addressed to Joshua Ferris, our address. I showed it to Adam. He didn't even blink. "It's for my assistant. Joshua is illiterate. He asked to use our address. I forgot to tell you." I opened the envelope in front of him. Blank paper. His fiancée must have forgotten to write. She's illiterate too. Poor thing. 78. William asked the question that haunted me. "Mom, why have we never met Dad's family? Everyone has grandparents, uncles, cousins. We only have Grandma Eleanor, who doesn't even like us." I had no answer. Adam always said he was a fatherless orphan, dead family. But was it true Mrs. Eleanor was getting careless? Sometimes she said things that made no sense. Once she said, "I need to send money to Joshua." I asked, "Who is Joshua?" She widened her eyes. "No one. Forget it." And that letter she received, Mary Catherine Ferris from Philadelphia, distant cousin, she said, but she stuffed it in her bra. December of 1979. That's when things really started to fall apart. Adam was more strange, more distant, arrived home and barely talked. He made love to me out of obligation, not compassion. One night I woke up with him talking in his sleep. "Catherine, be careful with the kids." "Catherine, don't forget." I shook him. "Adam, who is?" "Catherine." He rubbed his eyes, pretended he didn't understand. "Catherine, I don't know any Catherine. You must have heard wrong, Harriet." But I heard right. I heard very well. And it wasn't the first time this name had appeared. The letter Mrs. Eleanor received, the sender, was Mary Catherine. The pieces of the puzzle were right in front of me, but my heart refused to put the complete image together. At the end of December, I found a receipt in his pants pocket. Majestic Hotel, Philadelphia, 3 days double room. The date was when he was supposedly at a work site in Kansas. I confronted him with the paper in my hand. "Adam, what hotel is this? Why does it say double here?" He looked at the paper, too calm. "The company sent me to Philadelphia to do a report before going to Kansas. Receptionist error writing double. You know how inattentive these employees are." January 1980 arrived with a storm, the kind of rain that floods streets, knocks down trees, tears off roofs. On January 2nd, Adam left right after New Year's. He said he had an emergency job in Kansas. A bridge had collapsed in the rain. They needed to rebuild urgently, otherwise several towns would be isolated. He kissed my forehead, a dry kiss without feeling. He hugged the children quickly. William, at 14, already noticed the distance. "Dad barely looked at us, Mom." The blue Volkswagen that was once our pride was now old, faded, making strange noises in the engine. I watched him disappear around the corner of the street under the pouring rain. Something inside me said it was the last time, but I pushed the thought away. Nonsense, just in my head. On January 15th, I woke up nauseated. I knew that feeling. I had been through it twice. I was pregnant again. At 33, 10 years after Nancy, another baby was coming. I was happy and scared at the same time. How to raise another child practically alone. William was already my right hand, helped with everything. Nancy at 10 was my little companion, but another baby just now that Adam was so distant. I decided not to send a telegram. I wanted to tell him in person, see his reaction. Maybe a new baby would bring him back to me. Maybe it would rekindle the love that seemed to have died somewhere on a dusty road in the American heartland. January 28, 1980. Thursday, 11 in the morning. That day is burned with a hot iron in my memory. I was hanging clothes in the backyard. Nancy was helping me holding the clothespins. The sun had come out after days of rain. I took advantage to wash everything. Sheets, towels, accumulated clothes. The doorbell rang. It was a man in a worn black suit sweating buckets even in the cool weather. Brown leather briefcase under his arm. "Mrs. Harriet Crawford, you need to sign here. Urgent telegram." My heart froze. Urgent telegram is never good news. I signed with a trembling hand. I opened it right there at the gate. The words danced, made no sense. I read it 3 times until I understood. "We regret to inform you of the death of Adam Crawford. Collapse construction site, Hot Springs, Arkansas. Body follows via rail. Expected arrival 3 days. Condolences. American Federal Highway Construction." The world stopped. The birds stopped singing. The wind stopped blowing. My husband was dead. The father of my children was dead, and I was pregnant with a baby who would never know his father. Nancy screamed when she saw me stagger. Mom, what happened?" I held on to the gate to avoid falling. Her voice seemed to come from very far away. Mrs. Eleanor appeared at the door. "What scandal is this girl always making drama?" I handed her the telegram with a trembling hand. She read slowly, her face losing color with each word. She sat right there on the entrance step. "My son, my boy is dead." And she began to cry, but it was a strange cry, theatrical, as if she were playing a role she had rehearsed. The next few days were a blur of faces, voices, movement. My mother arrived minutes later, alerted by a neighbor. She hugged me tight while I sobbed. My father took care of everything. He notified relatives, prepared the house for the wake, went to the train station to get information about when the body would arrive. 3 days. 3 days waiting for my husband's body to arrive in a train car along with merchandise cargo. The final humiliation. Not even dead did he have the dignity to come alone. He came in a cargo car, the coffin tied between coffee sacks and toolboxes. The coffin arrived sealed, official paper glued. "Do not open. Death by crushing. Inappropriate for viewing." I begged the funeral home worker, "Please, I need to see my husband one last time. I need to say goodbye." The man, already old and hardened from dealing with so much death, held my hands. "Ma'am, don't do this. Keep the memory of him alive. A collapse is an ugly thing. You won't want this last image. Trust me." I accepted. I regret it to this day. If I had insisted, I would have discovered the truth right there. But I accepted as always. I accepted everything. The wake was in our living room. I couldn't afford the cemetery chapel. We removed all the furniture, placed the coffin on borrowed trestles, covered it with a black cloth my mother had. Flowers, just those from the yard, daisies, white roses, chrysanthemums that I grew myself. The house filled up. Curious neighbors, acquaintances, people, all with the same pitying face. Poor Harriet, a widow so young, 2 children to raise. How will she manage? Some men who claimed to be Adam's co-workers showed up. I had never seen any of them. They said nice words about him being dedicated, responsible. Then they left quickly as if in a hurry. William stayed all night beside the coffin. He didn't shed a tear. He stood there, hand on the coffin, as if he were watching not only his father, but the childhood that was ending there. At 14, he became the man of the house. Nancy didn't leave my skirt for a second. She slept clinging to me, sobbing softly. The burial was on Saturday, February 1st. The sky seemed to be in mourning, too. Torrential rain since early morning. Pinerove Cemetery was a mud pit. It was hard to walk between the graves without sinking your shoes into the red mud. The pastor prayed quickly. Everyone wanted to get out of that miserable rain. When they started lowering the coffin, I felt a sharp, cutting pain in my belly. I held on to the headstone next to me to avoid falling. The world spun. The last thing I remember is seeing the coffin disappearing into the grave and thinking, who is in there? Is it really my Adam? I woke up at home. My mother putting a cold compress on my forehead. "You fainted at the cemetery, daughter. We brought you home. The doctor has already been here." I looked down. Blood. Lots of blood. "I lost the baby, didn't I, Mom?" She nodded with tears in her eyes. "It was too much suffering for your body to bear, daughter." I lost the baby, which would be the last piece of Adam or Joshua or whoever that man was. I cried for 3 days straight for the dead husband, for the lost baby, for the life I had planned, and that was slipping through my fingers like water. Mrs. Eleanor changed after that. She became more cruel if that was possible. Now, yes, you'll see what a hard life is. Without my son to support you, you'll starve. These children will have to work. You'll have to manage. But she didn't leave. She stayed there like a tick, occupying space, eating our food, poisoning our days. I started taking in laundry. I woke up at 500 in the morning, scrubbed clothes in the tub until my hands bled. I cleaned the houses of the town ladies, cleaned what they dirtied for pennies. William dropped out of school, got a job as an office boy at the downtown notary office. Mom, no use insisting. I need to help. I can't see you killing yourself alone. Every Sunday I went to the cemetery. I brought flowers from the yard, talked to the headstone. Adam, why did you leave me? Why didn't you stay home that day? The children need you. I need you. How am I going to live without you? 6 months like this. February, March, April, May, June, July. 6 months of complete mourning. Black dress, black veil, life in black and white. I lost 30 pounds. The dresses became loose, the eyes sunken, the hair started to fall out. I was dying of sadness day by day until August arrived. August 12th, 1980. Tuesday, 2nd in the afternoon. The heat was unbearable, the kind that cracks the asphalt. I had just returned from cleaning Mrs. Child's house, the mayor's wife. I was exhausted with my hands raw from scrubbing the tile floor with lye. Nancy was at school, William at work. Mrs. Eleanor was napping in the living room armchair, the knitting fallen on her lap. 3 hard knocks on the door. I dried my hands on my apron, went to answer. It was a short, bald man shirt, soaked with sweat, forming circles under his arms, suit frayed at the elbows, crooked tie, black briefcase overflowing with yellowed papers. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm looking for Mr. Joshua Ferris." That name again. My heart raced. "There's no one by that name here, sir. You must be mistaken." He took a paper from his briefcase, adjusted his thick glasses. "Ma'am, according to my records, Joshua Ferris frequents this residence. Oak Street, 342 Heights." "This is it, isn't it?" "Yes, this is it. But I don't know any Joshua Ferris. I've lived here for 14 years and there's never been anyone by that name." He sighed. Tired, passed a dirty handkerchief on his forehead. "Ma'am, I've been a process server for 20 years. I know when people are lying to me." Joshua Ferris, 35, dark-haired mustache, 5'11". Married to Mary Catherine Ferris since 1962. 4 children, Raymond, Catherine, Joseph Jr., and Stephen. He owes 8 months of child support. The wife went to court. If he doesn't show up, his arrest will be ordered. Married since 62, but I married Adam in 66. 4 children, child support. The words made no sense. It was as if he were speaking Chinese. "Sir, are you sure it's this address? There must be some mistake." He shook his head, took a 3x4 photo from his shirt pocket. The photo was yellowed, a bit faded by time. "It's this man here, ma'am. Joshua Ferris." I looked at the photo. The world stopped spinning. It was Adam, my Adam. The thin mustache, the side smile, the dimple on the chin that conquered me at the celebration. But it wasn't possible. It couldn't be. This is my husband, Adam Crawford, but he died. He's been dead for 6 months. He's buried in Pinarove Cemetery. The officer looked at me with a mixture of pity and fatigue. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to inform you, but this man is Joshua Ferris, and he is very much alive. His wife in Philadelphia received a letter from him last month from Las Vegas. That's why she filed for child support. He abandoned her and the 4 children." My legs wobbled. I leaned on the door to avoid falling. The officer held my arm. "Ma'am, do you need water? Do you want to sit down?" I shook my head, stumbled in. He followed me. We sat at the kitchen table. Mrs. Eleanor continued sleeping in the living room or pretending to sleep. The officer opened his briefcase, started taking out document after document. Marriage certificate. Joshua Ferris and Mary Catherine Sullivan. May 12, 1962. First Presbyterian Church, Philadelphia. Birth certificates of the children. Raymond, born in 63. Catherine, 65. Joseph Jr., 68. Stephen, 71. Catherine was born in '65, a year before William. While Adam was wooing me at the celebration, his wife in Philadelphia was pregnant. Joseph Jr. was born in '68. Adam was with me when she had her third child. Stephen in '71, a year after Nancy. Two parallel families, two worlds that should never meet. But he died. I buried him. He's in the cemetery. I repeated like a mantra, clinging to this last hope. The officer shook his head. Ma'am, Joshua Ferris is alive. The letter he sent to his wife is from June. He ran away with a woman named Donna, a 22-year-old girl who he met at a dance club. He took all the savings from both families. I ran to the bedroom, grabbed my documents with trembling hands. Marriage certificate. Adam Crawford and Harriet Williams, January 15, 1966. First Baptist Church, Springfield. I showed it to the officer as if it were a trump card. He examined the paper with a magnifying glass. Ma'am, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this document is fake. Very well forged, but fake. See here the registration number. It doesn't exist in the registry. The seal is wrong. The official signature is forged. You were never legally married. 15 years. 15 years living a lie. 15 years thinking I was a wife when I was a mistress. 15 years raising children who were illegitimate in the eyes of the law. The officer continued talking, but I couldn't hear anything else. I could only think of all the times I had signed Harriet Crawford with pride, a name that was never mine. Mrs. Eleanor appeared at the kitchen door. How long had she been listening? The officer turned to her. Are you the mother of Adam Crawford? She was silent for a moment, then said with that thin, cutting voice, There is no Adam Crawford. There never was. The officer left, promising to investigate further. He said he would be in touch. As soon as the door closed, I faced Mrs. Eleanor. You always knew. You always knew everything. She sat in the chair, smoothed her black skirt. Of course I knew. I'm Joshua's aunt, his mother's sister who died when he was a child. He paid me $100 a month to pretend to be his mother, to watch you, to make sure you never found out. Why? Why do this to me? Why destroy my life? She shrugged as if she were talking about the weather. Joshua was enchanted with you at that celebration, said he would have you at any cost. He forged the documents, invented the identity of Adam Crawford, created an entire life of lies. In the beginning, it was just an adventure, a rich man's whim. Then you got pregnant. That's when it got complicated. He couldn't leave without scandal. And the funeral. Who's in the coffin? Who did I bury? She laughed a dry laugh that gave me chills. Some homeless person from the hospital. Joshua paid the gravedigger $5,000. They took a body without family, without identity, put it in the sealed coffin. Joshua took the money he had saved, the savings from both families, and fled to Las Vegas with that Donna, 22 years old, big-chest, perky butt, said he was tired of old women and crying children. I felt an anger rising from my stomach, burning my throat, an anger I had never felt in my life. I stood up and screamed with all the strength in my lungs, "Get out of my house! Get out now! Get out of my life!" She got up, slowly, looked at me with contempt. "I'll leave. But you're going to suffer a lot more now. Everyone will know that you were never married, that you lived in sin for 15 years, that your children are illegitimate. They'll be called bastards for the rest of their lives, and you'll be known as the idiot who was deceived for more than a decade." I grabbed the flower vase from the table and threw it in her direction. I missed by a little. Get out before I do something crazy." She left slowly, dragging her 2 suitcases, leaving a trail of poison wherever she went. As soon as the door slammed, I fell to the kitchen floor and cried. I cried like I had never cried. I cried for the love that never existed, for the husband who was a ghost, for the 15 years thrown away, for the baby lost over a fake mourning, for the humiliation that would come when everyone knew. William arrived from work and found me still on the floor. "Mom, for God's sake, what happened?" "Where's Grandma Eleanor?" I got up slowly, washed my face, sat with him at the table. "Son, I need to tell you something. Your father isn't dead. He ran away. And his name wasn't Adam. It was Joshua. And he had another family in Philadelphia. We were deceived for 15 years. William punched the table so hard it cracked the wood. I knew it. I always knew something was wrong. Those trips, that fake old woman, all lies. But Mom, What do we do now? Now we survive, son. That's what we do. We survive. The news spread through the town like wildfire. In 2 days, everyone knew. Poor Harriet was deceived for 15 years. She lived in sin thinking she was married. The children are illegitimate. How didn't she notice, stupid, naive fool? The children were cruel to William and Nancy at school. Bastard child of nobody. Your mother was a mistress. William came home with a black-eye torn shirt. I fought Mom. I couldn't take it. They said you were a... I cleaned the wound, put on mercuric chrome that stung but healed. Son, hold your head high. You're not illegitimate. You're my son. You were conceived in love, even if that love was based on a lie. A week after the revelation, I went to the cemetery. I stood in front of the grave where it was written, Adam Crawford, 1940 to 1980. Beloved husband and father, lie upon lie. Who is down there? Who did I cry for 6 months? Why did I wear black? I took a stone and started scraping the name off the headstone. I scraped until my fingers bled. The gravedigger came running. Ma'am, what are you doing? Are you crazy? I'm removing the lie. Just the lie. I tore off the bronze plaque with my hands, the anger giving me strength I didn't know I had. I threw the plaque in the cemetery trash. I decided to look for the real wife, Mary Catherine. I needed to look her in the eyes, ask for forgiveness. I don't know. I got the address from the process server, saved money for 3 months, bought a bus ticket to Philadelphia, 12 hours of travel every mile thinking about what I was going to say. I knocked on the door of a simple house in the Fishtown neighborhood. A woman answered, short, plump gray hair pulled into a bun, tired eyes of someone who had cried a lot in life. Mary Catherine. I'm Harriet from Springfield. She looked me up and down. Come in. I was expecting you. We sat in her kitchen just like mine. Wood stove, wooden table, lace curtain. She served strong, bitter coffee. So you're the other woman. I didn't know I was the other woman. I thought I was the wife. She laughed without humor. We all think that, dear. You, me, and now Donna. We all think we're special. We talked all afternoon. She told me how she met Joshua at a carnival ball in '59. He said he was an engineer. They married in '62. She showed me the photos. Young Joshua, handsome, smiling, the children. Raymond looked like William. Catherine had Nancy's eyes. We were two sides of the same fake coin. Did he send money, I asked when I remembered. He traveled a lot, 20 days a month. Said it was work. Now I know it was you. The first years it was you. Then he must have found another and another. Who knows how many Harriets there are across this country. When I said goodbye, she held my hand. Don't blame yourself. A man who lies like that lies well professionally. We had no way of knowing, but now we know. And knowledge is power. We'll survive. We women, we always survive. I returned from Philadelphia with a heart both lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because I wasn't alone in this pain. Heavier because now I knew that Joshua had done to others what he did to me. How many Harriets, how many Catherines existed across America? Life in Springfield was impossible. The pitying looks, the whispers, the malicious laughter. At the market, women moved away when I arrived as if misfortune was contagious. At church, no one sat on the same pew. The pastor tried to console me, said God forgives everything, but I didn't want forgiveness. I wanted dignity. I decided we would start over from scratch. I sold everything of value. The furniture that Adam had bought turned into money. The television, the radio, even my fake wedding ring, which was still worth something because it was real gold. I gathered $300. It was little, but it was enough to start. I rented a small 2-room house on the outskirts, dirt floor bathroom, in the yard improvised wood stove, but it was ours without ghosts, without lies. William painted the walls with lime. Nancy made curtains with bleached flour sacks. It was humble, but honest. I started making box lunches. I woke up at 3 Housers in the morning, cooked beans, rice, a meat dish, well-seasoned cornbread salad when possible. William helped me carry the tray to the factory gates. At first, I sold 10-15 lunches a day. It barely covered our living expenses. It was Nancy who had the idea. Mom, you make the best seasoning in Springfield. Why don't you sell ready-made seasoning? I started making it at home. Garlic pounded with salt, finely chopped herbs, ground black pepper. I put it in reused glass jars. Harriet's Seasonings, I wrote on the handmade label. The business grew slowly. The housewives tried it, liked it, came back. In 6 months, I was selling 100 jars a week. The money was still little, but it was enough to eat and pay the rent. William was 16, worked during the day, studied at night, determined to be a doctor. I'm going to be a real doctor. Mom, not a lie like him. He studied until dawn, by the light of a kerosene lamp. Sometimes he got sick from hunger, but he didn't give up. Nancy at 12 was my partner, had a head for business. It was she who suggested making other products. Hot sauce, vegetable preserves, fruit preserves. She calculated price, profit, expense. At 12, she managed better than many adults. One day a man appeared at the door. Good suit, new car. Mrs. Harriet, I'm the owner of Polish supermarket. I want to buy your seasoning to resell. First order, 500 jars per month. I cried with joy. It was the beginning of the turnaround. With the guaranteed money, I rented a small space at the municipal market, a small room with an industrial stove and shelves. I put up a sign, Harriet's Seasonings Homemade Products. The market people wrinkled their noses. The engineer's mistress, wanting to be a businesswoman. Let her be. She'll soon go broke. I didn't go broke. I worked 16 hours a day. I made seasoning, served customers, delivered orders. William helped on weekends. Nancy kept the accounts, organized inventory. We were a team, a real family forged in pain and struggle. 1985, the business had grown. 3 employees, production of 2,000 jars per month. I supplied 5 supermarkets. I bought the first new refrigerator of my life. I paid cash with my money. Clean, hard-earned, honest money. William was admitted to medical school, pre-med, at the State University, full scholarship on merit. The day the results came out, I closed the store early. We bought a roast chicken, cold Coca-Cola. We had a party. Neighbors who hadn't spoken to me in years came to congratulate. Your son is going to be a doctor, Mrs. Harriet. Yes, he is. A real doctor. Nancy finished high school, went to teacher's college, became a math teacher, the best in the school. Mom, numbers don't lie. That's why I like them. She taught in the morning, helped me at the store in the afternoon. She never complained, never asked for anything beyond what was necessary. 1990. 10 years after the fake death, the business turned into a small industry. Rented warehouse, 10 employees, delivery truck, Harriet's Seasonings throughout the Springfield region, monthly revenue of $5,000 more than Adam ever sent. That's when I received a letter, return address, Federal Penitentiary of Las Vegas. I opened it with trembling hands. Harriet, I know I have no right to write. I've been in prison for 2 years. Fraud. Donna left me, took everything. Karma. You must think I'm right. I need to say I'm sorry, not for what I did. That would be a lie. But for having lost you and the children. You were the real family. Joshua. I burned the letter. I didn't reply. I had nothing to say. 1995. 15 years later. William was already a certified doctor specialist in cardiology. He worked at County Hospital, married a good woman, a teacher. He gave me 2 beautiful grandchildren. They never knew their grandfather. Better that way. Nancy became a school principal. She married a good man, a real engineer with a diploma on the wall, 3 children all educated, raised with love and truth. That's when William called me. Mom, I found him. Joshua is in prison in Las Vegas. Had a heart attack. He's in the hospital. Do you want to see him? I thought for a week. Did I need to? Did I want to? Maybe. I needed to look him in the eyes one last time, close this chapter. I took a bus to Las Vegas, 12 hours thinking about what I would say. I arrived at the penitentiary on a Saturday morning. Strong sun, humid heat. I showed my documents. They explained the procedure. Visiting room glass, separating telephone to talk. I waited half an hour. When he came in, I almost didn't recognize him. Bald, fat, old, worn out. The eyes were still the same, but empty, dull. He sat on the other side of the glass, picked up the phone. Harriet. The voice different. Yes, Joshua or Adam or whoever you are. He lowered his head. Forgive me. Forgive you, I didn't come for that. I came to thank you. He raised his head, confused. Thank me? Yes. You taught me to be strong. You taught me that I didn't need any man to survive. Because of you, I built an empire. I raised 2 wonderful children. If you hadn't run away, I would forever be your prisoner. Your lie freed me. How are the children? They're not children, and they're not yours. They never were. William is a cardiologist, saved 3 lives just this week. Nancy is a principal. She educates 500 children. They are mine. Only mine. Harriet, I didn't want to hear. I just came to say one thing. You lost. You tried to destroy me and made me stronger. You tried to ruin my children and they became doctors. Your lie became my truth of overcoming. I got up to leave. He banged on the glass. Wait, please. I stopped. Didn't turn around. You were the love of my life, Harriet. I turned, looked him straight in the eyes. No, I was just another one. Like Catherine, like Donna, like how many others. But you know the difference. I survived. More than that, I won. I left without looking back. Outside, I took a deep breath. The air had never been so pure. The sun had never been so bright. I had definitively closed this chapter. 2000 New Millennium. The small industry became a chain. Harriet's Seasonings. 3 factories, 200 employees, millionaire revenue. I bought my own house, big, beautiful, with a swimming pool. Not for ostentation, for merit. 2005, I received news. Joshua died in prison. Massive heart attack alone. Did I go to the funeral? Numb. Did I send flowers? Numb. Did I cry? Also no. He had been dead to me for 25 years. When I returned from Las Vegas, something inside me had changed. The weight of Adam Crawford, that ghost who had haunted me for 15 years, lifted from my shoulders. For too long, I had carried him first as a husband, then as a widow, and finally as a victim. But seeing Joshua in that prison visiting room separated by bulletproof glass, I realized the man I had feared was nothing but a broken shell. All those years I had been running from a mirage. The Monday after my return, I walked into our warehouse with my head held higher. I noticed the employees watching me, whispering when they thought I couldn't hear. Mrs. Williams seems different. She's walking taller. There's something in her eyes. What they saw was a woman who had finally buried her past, not in Pinarove Cemetery, where a stranger lay, but in that prison visiting room. I had buried the shame that had clung to me like a second skin since the day the process server knocked on my door. The business was growing steadily, but suddenly I wanted more. I gathered my staff of 10 before production began that morning. They stood around in their hairnets and aprons, curious about this impromptu meeting. For years we've been making the best seasonings in the region, I told them. But why stop at Springfield? Why stop at Missouri? There's a whole country out there that deserves good food. I laid out my 5-year plan distributors in 5 states, a real factory, instead of a rented warehouse, branded trucks, a mail-order catalog. They looked at me like I'd lost my mind. We were just 10 people in a rented space making a few thousand jars a month. Ralph, my longest-serving employee, scratched his balding head. Mrs. Williams, that's going to take a mountain of money. Where are we going to get that kind of capital? I had been pondering this question for weeks. The banks wouldn't lend to a woman with my history and no college education. I had built everything so far with pennies scraped together, but expansion required real investment. That afternoon I visited First National Bank, but not to ask for a loan. I knew better. I went to speak with Mr. Harold Simmons, the bank president. I'd gone to school with his wife Martha before I dropped out to work in my father's store. I brought a basket containing every product we made, the original seasoning hot sauce, preserves, our new barbecue rub. "Harold," I said, placing the basket on his desk, "your wife Martha uses my seasoning. Ask her about it. I'm not here for charity. I'm here for a business proposition." He gestured for me to sit, intrigued more by my directness than my gift basket. I spread out my expansion plan growth charts, profit margins, and customer retention rates terms I'd taught myself from library books, studying at night after work until my eyes burned. Harold reviewed the papers, his expression growing more serious with each page. "Impressive, Harriet. But banks don't make equity investments. We make loans, and frankly, your business doesn't have the collateral or credit history for what you're describing." I didn't blink. "I'm not looking for the bank to invest. I'm looking for you and other business leaders to form a private investment group. 20% stake for $50,000. I retain controlling interest. You get quarterly dividends and your money back 5 times over within 8 years. He laughed, not unkindly. "Harriet, no offense, but what makes you think you can promise that kind of return? You've never even taken a business course." I leaned forward, placing my hand on his polished desk. "Harold, 15 years ago, I discovered my entire marriage was a lie. I had 2 children, no job skills beyond stocking shelves, and a community that turned its back on me. In 10 years, I built a company that generates more revenue than your father's farm ever did. I did it without loans, without investors, without a husband. I did it with these hands and this head." I tapped my temple. "The question isn't whether I can deliver on my promise. The question is whether you're smart enough to profit from it." His expression changed. He wasn't looking at poor Harriet the deceived anymore. He was looking at a businesswoman making a compelling case. 2 weeks later, he called. "I've assembled a group, 4 investors including myself. We'll do $60,000 for 18%. $60,000 for 15%, I countered, "and I want Martha on my advisory board. She has a better palate than you do." And just like that, Harriet's Seasonings entered its next phase. The expansion was brutal. 16-hour days stretched to 18. I slept on a cot in my office many nights, too exhausted to drive home. We hit every obstacle imaginable: equipment failures, shipment, delays, a competitor trying to steal our recipe, a tornado that took off part of the new factory roof a week before opening. Through it all, William and Nancy stood by me. William would come by after hospital shifts, still in his white coat, to help with paperwork. Nancy balanced the company books on weekends while grading papers for her students. They never complained, never reminded me they had their own lives, their own families. They understood what I was building wasn't just a business. It was redemption. It was the future that had been stolen from us being reclaimed jar by jar. The hardest part was the isolation. As a woman in business in the mid-90s, I had few peers. The Chamber of Commerce meetings were full of men in suits who spoke around me as if I were invisible. When I offered suggestions, they were ignored until a man repeated them 10 minutes later. At supplier negotiations, they would look past me, searching for the husband or father they assumed must be the real decision-maker. I kept a journal during this time. On particularly difficult days, I'd write a letter to Joshua that I never intended to send. Today, I signed a distribution deal with a supermarket chain in Kansas City, 6 stores to start. Remember how you said I'd starve without you? Tonight, I'm having steak. In 1997, we hit our first $1 million year. I invited Harold and the other investors to dinner at the finest restaurant in Springfield. I handed each of them an envelope. Inside was a check returning their original investment, plus 20% interest, along with papers converting their equity to non-voting shares. "I'm buying back control, gentlemen," I said. "You'll still get your dividends, but decision-making stays with me and my family." Harold smiled, raising his glass. "To the best investment I ever made against my better judgment." That same year, I faced a decision that tested everything I believed about myself. A major national brand, you'd recognize the name on sight, approached us with an acquisition offer. $8 million. More money than I had ever imagined possessing. Enough to guarantee security for generations of my family. Their executives flew in on a private jet, took me to lunch at that same fancy restaurant. They laid out glossy presentations showing how they would take Harriet's Seasonings nationwide, maybe even global. "Your face on every jar, Mrs. Williams. Your story in commercials. You'll be famous." Their marketing vice president promised sliding a preliminary contract across the table. I asked for 1 week to consider. That night I called a family meeting. William, Nancy, their spouses, even the older grandchildren gathered in my living room. I laid out the offer, all the pros and cons. William leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Mom, you worked yourself nearly to death building this company. Maybe it's time to enjoy the fruits of that labor. $8 million buys a lot of peace." But Nancy's expression told a different story. She'd always had the sharper business mind. "Mom, they're not offering $8 million because that's what the company is worth. They're offering $8 million because they know it's worth much more. The distribution channels alone are worth that. What happens to the employees? What happens to the recipes? What happens to your legacy?" The room divided, some arguing for security and rest, others for independence and growth. I watched their animated faces, these beautiful humans I had raised alone, now successful professionals with wisdom to share. This was my true wealth, not jars on shelves or numbers in bank accounts, but these people, this family forged in fire. When the room finally quieted, all eyes turned to me. Before I speak as the owner of Harriet's Seasonings, I want to speak as your mother. Everything I built for you. Not just the business, but the example. I wanted to show you that a woman alone could stand on her own 2 feet, that lies can't break you unless you let them, that with enough determination you can build something from nothing. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision. $8 million would mean never worrying about money again, but it would also mean giving up the company that had saved me the work that had given me purpose when I had nothing else. I'm turning down the offer. This company isn't just a product line to be absorbed by a conglomerate. It's our story, my deception, our struggle, our triumph. And that story isn't finished yet. The room erupted in a mix of reactions, but I held up my hand for silence. However, I am making a change. Effective immediately, I'm appointing William and Nancy as co-CEOs. I'll remain as chairman of the board, but day-to-day operations will transition to you over the next year. It's time for the next generation to write the next chapter. That transition year was harder than I expected. Letting go of control over something you've built from scratch isn't easy. I found myself checking in too often, questioning decisions, offering unsolicited advice. William and Nancy were patient with me, more patient than I deserved. They understood this wasn't just a business handover. It was a mother learning to trust that her children could fly on their own. They did more than fly, they soared. Within 3 years, they had expanded the product line to include marinades, cooking sauces, and specialized blends. They modernized the production facilities, launched a website when most food companies didn't have one, created cooking videos before YouTube existed. Revenue tripled. Harriet's Seasonings became a staple in kitchens across America. In 2000, they surprised me with a gift I never expected. A book. Not just any book, my book. From Lies to Spice, the Harriet Williams story. They had hired a ghostwriter who interviewed me for months, recorded my memories, my struggles, my triumphs. The book was already in its second printing. Why would anyone want to read about me? I asked, stunned as I held the first copy. Nancy squeezed my hand. Because your story matters, Mom. Because there are women out there living with lies right now who need to know they can survive them. Because you turned pain into purpose, and the world needs that message. The book did surprisingly well. Not a bestseller, but steady sales that continue to this day. I began receiving letters from women across the country who had experienced similar betrayals. Women whose husbands had secret families, secret identities, secret lives. Women who thought they were alone in their shame until they read my story. I answered every letter by hand. Sometimes just a few lines of encouragement, sometimes pages of advice. I told them what I had learned the hard way: surviving betrayal is just the first step. The real victory comes not in merely enduring, but in rebuilding something better than what was lost. One letter in particular changed the course of my retirement years. It came from a woman named Dorothy in Ohio. Her story echoed mine in many ways: a husband with another family, the shock of discovery, the struggle to support children alone. But her letter ended with a question that haunted me. Mrs. Williams, how did you know where to start? I have no skills, no money, and no idea how to build a life from these ashes. That question kept me awake for nights. How do you teach someone to do what I did? How do you convey the combination of desperation, determination, and dumb luck that led me from a dirt floor rental to a thriving business? There was no roadmap for what I had done. So I decided to create one. In 2002, at the age of 56, I founded the Second Chapter Center in downtown Springfield. A simple storefront with a classroom, some desks, and a sign for women starting over. Using profits from the book and my own savings, I created a place where women in transition, not just from betrayal, but from divorce, widowhood, domestic violence, career loss, could come for practical help. We offered classes in basic business skills, financial literacy, resume writing. We provided childcare while mothers attended job interviews. We created a small business incubator where women could launch micro-enterprises with minimal investment. Most importantly, we created a community where no one had to face their second chapter alone. The center became my focus for the next decade. I was there every day teaching mentoring, sometimes just listening. I watched women arrive broken and leave empowered. I saw businesses born on our battered tables grow into sustainable livelihoods. I witnessed children who had once been hungry celebrating their mother's first profitable quarters. In a sweet twist of fate, our biggest financial supporter turned out to be Harold Simmons. After he retired from the bank, he became our volunteer financial advisor, helping women navigate loan applications, business plans, and investment strategies. When I teased him about this unlikely role, he simply shrugged. "Harriet, you taught me to see potential where others see problems. I'm just passing along the lesson." The center's work drew attention beyond Springfield. I was invited to speak at women's conferences, economic development forums, even a congressional hearing on female entrepreneurship. I always felt like an imposter in these settings, with my 8th grade education and homegrown wisdom. But the women who approached me afterward, women with fancy degrees and corner offices, assured me my perspective was exactly what was needed. "You speak from experience, not theory," one CEO told me after a panel discussion. "That's why people listen." In 2005, I received news that Joshua had died in prison. Massive heart attack alone in his cell. Did I go to the funeral numb? Did I send flowers? Did I cry? Also no. He had been dead to me for 25 years. But I did take a moment of silence for the man whose actions, however destructive, had inadvertently set me on the path to becoming who I was meant to be. I thought about the young woman at the 4th of July celebration, so desperate for a handsome man's approval, and wished I could tell her what I know now, that her worth wasn't dependent on any man's validation, that her greatest strength would emerge from her deepest wound, that her happiest days were still ahead. As I entered my 60s, I began to think about the legacy I would leave beyond the seasoning company and the center. I wanted future generations of my family to understand not just what I had built, but why. I started recording video diaries speaking directly to descendants I might never meet. I shared not just the triumphs, but the doubts, the fears, the moments when I nearly gave up. I spoke about the night in that dirt floor house when the electricity was cut off because I couldn't pay the bill, how William, Nancy, and I sat in candlelight eating cold beans telling stories to stay warm, how that night in that darkness I promised them and myself that we would never be that vulnerable again. I recorded memories of the early days of the business, storing jars in the bathroom because there was no other space, delivering orders on the city bus because we couldn't afford a car, mixing seasonings at 4 a.m. before the children woke up so I could be with them before school. But I also made sure to record the joy. The day William got his medical school acceptance letter and we danced around the kitchen like fools. The morning I realized we had enough money in the bank to pay all our bills and still buy ice cream. The first time I saw our products on a supermarket shelf and stood there crying until a concerned clerk asked if I was all right. In 2012, my great-granddaughter Aurora turned 15. She had been watching me record these diaries, fascinated by the process. On her birthday, she asked for a special gift to interview me about Joshua. Not about the business, not about the center, but about the man whose lie had set everything in motion. I hesitated. I had never spoken in detail about him to the younger generations. They knew the basic outline, of course, the fake identity, the other family, the fraudulent death. But I had always focused on what came after, on the rebuilding, rather than the destruction. Aurora was persistent. "Great-Grandma, how can I understand your strength if I don't understand what tested it?" We sat in my sunroom, just the two of us, her phone recording between us on the table. Her questions were surprisingly insightful, focused less on the facts I had repeated many times, and more on the emotions I had often glossed over. "Great-Grandma, what did you feel when you looked at that photo the process server showed you?" The question took me back to that kitchen that hot August day. It was like the world suddenly had no oxygen, like I was drowning on dry land. I remember thinking this can't be happening, not because I couldn't believe Adam would deceive me, but because I couldn't bear the thought that my entire identity as Mrs. Crawford was a fiction. Who was I if not his wife? That's what terrified me most, the erasure of the person I thought I was. Did you ever truly love him? I considered carefully. I loved who I thought he was. I loved the character he created. The real Joshua, I never knew him. How can you love someone you've never met? What I mourned wasn't the man, but the dream he represented. The educated husband, the comfortable life, the respect of the community. I had to learn that those things could be earned, not just conferred by marriage. Aurora's gentle questioning brought forth memories I hadn't examined in years. The shame I felt walking into the grocery store after the truth came out. The rage that burned so hot, I would sometimes have to pull the car over because I couldn't see through my tears. The terror of facing an uncertain future with 2 children depending on me. When she asked her final question, I was emotionally exhausted, having revisited wounds I thought had fully healed. Great-Grandma, if you could speak to Joshua one more time, what would you say to him? I thought carefully, wanting to give her an honest answer. I would tell him that despite his intentions, he gave me 3 priceless gifts. First, my children, who are the center of my world. Second, the crisis that forced me to discover my own strength. And third, the realization that a woman's worth is not determined by the man who stands beside her or abandons her, but by the life she creates on her own terms. After our interview, Aurora did something unexpected. She edited the recording, added old family photos and footage, and created a short documentary that she shared with the entire family at our Christmas gathering. Seeing my story through her eyes, through the perspective of a generation that had grown up with the benefits of my struggle, but none of the pain, gave me a new appreciation for the distance I had traveled. The 2020s brought new challenges. The pandemic forced the world to slow down, and isolated in my home, connected to family only through screens and phone calls, I began to catalog the artifacts of my journey. The first handwritten label for Harriet's seasonings, the key to that dirt floor house, the telegram announcing Adam's false death, the prison visitor's pass from Las Vegas. Each object tells part of the story, but none captures the emotional landscape of those years. The terror of standing on the precipice of destitution, the bone-deep exhaustion of working 3 jobs while raising children, the sweet relief of the first night I went to bed knowing there was food for tomorrow, the burst of pride when William placed MD after his name, the quiet satisfaction of helping other women find their footing after their own worlds collapsed. Some people say that suffering ennobles you, makes you better, stronger, wiser. I disagree. Suffering just breaks you into pieces. What matters is how you put yourself back together. Some people reassemble themselves exactly as they were, cracks, and all vulnerable to the next blow in the same places. Others build something entirely new from the fragments, something unexpected and marvelous. I chose the latter path, not because I was particularly brave or wise, but because I had no other choice. I had children who needed to eat a roof, that needed to stay over our heads, a future that refused to be foreclosed by one man's lies. Did I do it perfectly? Far from it. I made 1,000 mistakes. I was too strict with my children at times, too focused on survival to see their emotional needs. I worked too many hours, missed too many moments, pushed myself and everyone around me too hard. I carried the weight of my deception for too many years, letting it color how I saw the world and everyone in it. But I did one thing right. I kept going. When the community shunned us, I kept going. When the bank denied my first loan application, I kept going. When equipment broke down the day before a major order was due, I kept going. When my body ached and my spirit flagged, I kept going. There's a kind of magic in persistence. It isn't flashy. It doesn't make for dramatic stories. But it is the quiet force that reshapes lives, builds businesses, heals wounds, and ultimately redefines what's possible. Now at 78, I am the matriarch of a family 4 generations deep. I am the founder of a national brand that employs hundreds. I am the creator of a center that has helped thousands of women reclaim their lives, all because I refused to let one man's lie be the final word on who I was and what I could become. But these achievements, impressive as they might seem from the outside, are not what I value most as I look back. What matters most to me are the moments of connection. The Sunday dinners with 4 generations crowded around my table. The letters from women who found hope in my story. The quiet conversations with William and Nancy about the journey we've shared. The knowledge that my great-grandchildren will never know the gnawing fear of scarcity that once defined my days. Sometimes in quiet moments, I wonder what would have happened if the process server had never knocked on my door. If I had continued living as Mrs. Adam Crawford, never discovering the lie at the heart of my marriage. Would I have been happier in my ignorance? Would the children have been better off with the illusion of a father rather than the truth of his betrayal? These are questions without answers. Life doesn't offer us glimpses of the paths not taken. All we have is the road we walked with its unexpected turns and painful ascents, its breathtaking vistas and peaceful valleys. As I sit on my porch watching the sunset paint the Missouri sky, I am filled with a profound sense of peace. Not because my life has been easy, it hasn't. Not because I've never known heartbreak, I have more than once. But because I've lived authentically on my own terms. Because I faced the truth, however painful, and built something beautiful from it. If you take nothing else from my story, take this truth, however painful, is always better than deception. A life built on lies is a house with a crumbling foundation. Sooner or later, the structure will fail, often catastrophically. But a life rebuilt on truth, however humble its beginnings, has unlimited potential for growth and joy. Adam Crawford never existed. He was a creation, a fantasy, a fraud. But Harriet Williams always existed. And when I discovered that, when I accepted that, that's when my life really began. At 33, when everything seemed lost, I was reborn. Stronger, wiser, truer. I don't know how many more years I have. At 78, the horizon is inevitably closer than the path behind me. But I face whatever remains with a serenity I never imagined possible in those dark days of 1980. I have seen my children rise. I have held my great-grandchildren. I have built something lasting from nothing but determination and the labor of these hands. What more could anyone ask of a life? What greater victory could there be than to stand at its twilight and say, I survived. I thrived. I lived authentically on my own terms. I built a truth so solid that no one can ever take it away. Please like this video if you found my story meaningful. Subscribe to the Grandma's Diary channel to hear more real stories like mine, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Thank you for listening to my journey.